Hi all, this is PowerPoint, the narrative PowerPoint for week 12. This one's short, 19 slides. I know you must be getting tired of hearing my voice. I'm getting tired of hearing my voice. I would so much rather these be in class so that you could discuss things and I could just throw things out there for you to discuss. But so it is. So we're going to talk a little bit more about law and the language. This is one of my favorite sections of this class, partly because I'm fascinated by crime and all legal things. I had thought about this being a profession. I'm glad this is not what I chose, but I still have this incredible interest in the connection between law and language. So I put this little bit of information up here that just emphasizes how important, if you do go to law school, how important precision is in your language, and also the precision for using punctuation. So just some ideas about that. And then the last paragraph is just really talking about how important linguists have been in the undertaking of different types of crime in today's world. So linguistic knowledge has facilitated our understanding of this, not only of the substance and substrate of law, but also really helped in solving crime. And that's what this PowerPoint is about. I've put a list of terms up here that we'll be using for this week's lab. Really what I wanted you to do for week 12 is use the sources that I've given you and to really test this out to see what you think about how linguists can serve as expert witness. But I've got the terminology over here. In case you're unfamiliar with them, if you haven't watched as much Law and Order as I have. So I just put some terminology that you can go back to on this slide. The rules of evidence are vast. There's so many. So I will post a non-narrated PowerPoint of this presentation so that you can go to that link if you want to, if it helps your assignment for this week. But there's just so many particular laws to keep the justice system fair and safe for everybody. The couple that I'll focus on is the rules for expert testimony. So this governs what is considered expert testimony. If scientific, technical, or other specified knowledge will assist a trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue, a witness qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify thereto in the form of an opinion or otherwise. And so this is the basis for rules of testimony. This will play into your assignment when I ask you to pick a case and then evaluate the linguistic evidence and the expert testimony of linguists. Again, so you have specifically rules for linguistic evidence. So notice part of that takes into account confession. It takes into account voice recognition and who can and how can that be validated. And then also evidence with other types of language data such as text, ransom notes, written or recordings, all kinds of things. So I'm going to just leave that up there. You'll have the non-narrated one, or you can stop this one and ponder those rules of experts or go back to them when you're doing the assignment. Again, not expert versus non-expert witness. There are different expectations and level of validity and credibility given to those. So keep that in mind for when the testimony comes from a witness versus an expert witness. some more particular rules. I won't go through all of them. You can read them. These will just help you. It's a source for you to use. And I've tried to isolate the ones that I think will be most relevant. Let's look at another sample case. Was the implication of pronouns. Here we have a conversation analysis. Now, I am trained in conversation analysis, but a linguist was asked to look at the transcript of this case. An athlete was accused of conspiracy to sell drugs. The linguist in charge of analyzing the evidence, it was a taped conversation between the dealer and the athlete. So it wasn't clear. It was kind of vague to the just everyday listener if there was any kind of evidence to implicate the athlete. But the linguist concluded that the use of the singular pronoun I by the dealer versus the plural we was an indicator that he planned to act in an individual capacity and not with the athlete. So even after the arrest, the suspect was implicating the athlete, but the linguist argued if that were the case, that statistically the individual would use the plural we instead of I, and so this was used as evidence to support the athlete's innocence. So this case, a ransom note was taken. This was provided in a kidnapping case where the note contained misspellings, such as daughter for daughter or cops for cops, and then yet in the ransom note, more difficult words like precious, diaper, watching, were all spelled correctly. So there was a mismatch between certain, the level of education that was implicated or evidenced by the misspellings than with the rest of the note. So Shai believed that the author of the note was trying to appear less educated than he was, sort of faking a certain level of unintelligence or lack of education. And so, but in the note, was a phrase called the devil strip, and Shai located this as a dialect feature that is from areas around certain areas of Ohio. And so as there was only one educated man from Akron in the suspect list, this gave the police a little bit of evidence to focus on that suspect and then prosecute him successfully for that kidnapping. Here's a case about text messaging. So here a young woman disappears, and after her disappearance, or before people really knew that she had disappeared, 2 messages were sent from her phone to her uncle, some kind of, just regular text messages. And then Coulthard was asked to compare the 65 texts that the girl had sent in the 3 days prior to her disappearance with these 2 texts that appeared in this sort of liminal space before they realized that she was missing, but was suspected to have been missing, and received by her uncle. The textual analysis, this idiolect of your text messaging, your own identifying marks, the things that you use, the propensity by which you use certain words, certain symbols, certain punctuation in your text. That's also part of your idiolect. It's that language that belongs to you, characteristics that are that you have a certain percentage of using. And so, based on the series of linguistic choices or absences thereof, the the linguist determined that it was fairly unlikely that the missing girl produced those texts. But then, having sent them to her uncle, also then implicated the uncle in her disappearance. And in this case, that was true. It was her uncle who abducted her and actually assaulted and killed her. So they actually were able to successfully prosecute this person based on that textual evidence. One thing that when my daughter was in college and she would travel home or she would travel someplace else, I would always ask her to call me when she arrived, and she would send me a text, and I would say no. Like, I would keep bugging her until she actually called me or until she picked up her phone, because I would tell her I don't know who wrote the text. Like, just because I get a text, I can't verify that it's actually you. So if I hear your voice and I talk to you, then I know it's you and I know you're okay. But a text message does not guarantee that that the person that you're communicating with is that person, nor does it guarantee the safety of the person that you are wishing to communicate with. So other linguists have testified in other types of cases. Cecilia Kitzinger actually was called as a witness in several rape cases as a linguistic expert. And the issue was this notion of just saying no. She's in the UK, so these cases occurred. They're not here. I don't remember exactly the jurisdiction, but she testified that the defense attorney was saying that, well, the alleged rape victim did not actually say no, and therefore the sex was consensual. But based on the transcript of both the defendant and the rape victim, Kissinger presented statistical evidence that shows that heuristically, people say no in a variety of ways. They don't always say the word no. And so through that statistical evidence, was able to show that someone doesn't have there are other ways, there are other linguistic and interactional ways that a person can say no, that it's perfectly clear if you are a member of that shared culture, that you understand those linguistic, those verbal and nonverbal cues to mean no. If you think about, I remember giving this presentation to a human sexuality class, and I said, imagine that I invite you over to my house, and I say to you, oh, hey, would you mind cleaning my bathroom? Which is an ask that is inappropriate and violates the relationship in all kinds of ways. Likely you won't tell me no, but some of you would, but a lot of you would find ways like, like a joke, act like it's a joke. You might say, you like use other ways to decline that request. And so that's what Kissinger did. She just showed statistically other ways that we do this that were consistent with what the rape victim had said she said, and was which the defendant concurred with, that she did say those things, she just didn't say no. And this helped really push the burden of consent to the person requesting as receiving not that kind of information, but had to receive affirmative confirmation from the participant before it was considered consensual. So this case was really important when I was in grad school, in that it made me really think of the power that linguistics and linguistic analysis has. So if you are interested in this kind of study, I'd say take the 407 linguistic analysis class and possibly the 408 psycho and sociolinguistic class. Even though they're geared toward teaching English as a second language, I think many of you would really enjoy those classes and enjoy being able to have those skills. So I'll tell you a little bit about my own case, the case that I was on as an expert witness. I can't give you a lot of details, but I want to kind of set up the issue so you see how my training played a part of this. So this was a year ago Thanksgiving, so not 2018 Thanksgiving, 2017 Thanksgiving. Or let me think. This was 2018 Thanksgiving week. So for whatever reason, whatever the real reason, a woman is fired, and her employers use a clause in her contract to fire her. And then I was asked to do a syntactic analysis of the contract and to provide an analysis of the clauses and as written and the meaning of those clauses. Okay, so this involved an analysis of a relative clause. So we were just looking at relative clauses last week, and then we had looked at them earlier about week 4. So I'll kind of show you what I did I will show you what I did in this slide. I got the contract, and part of my statement included this. To my understanding, the question is whether the second relative clause, who has significant influence over the team member, even if in a different business unit, refers to the referent. So remember, a relative clause has to link back to a noun, and we can choose what relative pronoun we use. In this case, it was who. The writer could have used that, but in any case, the relative clause linking back to the noun is who, and or refers to another entity or reference. So does it just link back to manager, or does it link back to a non-manager or other employee? And so to that question, my response was the syntax and the corresponding punctuation, because remember, syntax and punctuation in writing are how we communicate meaning. So of this document answers the question unambiguously. No new referent or interpretation thereof is possible regarding the second complement. So there was this two-part relative clause. And so to be clear, the referent, any manager, is complemented. We know this word is completed by, and I explain this, completed, defined, because I'm writing to a non-linguistic audience, equally and exclusively by the coordinated restricted relative clauses. So we have a coordination that's using one of our coordinators. In this case, it was or. Both complement clauses are headed by the relative pronoun who and attached to the referent, any manager, without commas. As such, the clauses are essential to defining that referent, any manager. Additionally, both complement clauses define the noun phrase, any manager, equally as evidenced by the coordinator, or. So the manager could be someone who does X or who does Y, but it couldn't refer to another referent, somebody else, another type of employee, because that noun or did not occur in the clause. So the woman fired was not a manager, but they were using this clause about managers to fire her. And so in my analysis, my written deposition, my statement was that there's no possible way to interpret it as another kind of employee, i.e. whatever her rank was or title was. So this was really interesting work for me to do. It's a syntactic analysis. It took me about 3 hours to look at all the paperwork, write up the analysis, correspond with the attorneys, and I actually got paid as an expert witness, so that was an extra bonus. So I also, provided a little bit of analysis as to what would be needed if the writer wanted to include other reference, so that kind of just showing what that syntactically and punctuationally would have to look like. This way, I felt like adding this information would eradicate any kind of possible questions, because this is the way that you would do it. And so it gave the prosecuting, or the attorney that was representing the woman a little bit more ammunition to say, this is by expert standards in syntax, this is what this language would have to look like. If you're really interested in this kind of work, I would go to this site and see all the different things that the International Association of Forensic Linguists are involved in. And it might be a way to combine a JD and a linguistics degree. So, and if you're interested, let me know. And one way to explore that interest is to do a paper on some kind of legal aspect that linguistics has been involved in. I have an entire book called Word Crimes that is written by a forensic linguist, and who talks about the cases that he has been on. If you're interested, or you're interested in a certain kind of case, email me and I'll scan the chapters that I think. These are just case studies, so he talks a little bit about what is involved, but it's not a textbook and it's not a training guide. It's really just his experiences as a forensic linguist. But if you're interested in certain kinds of cases, I'll see if he has examples that you might be able to use in your papers. Okay, so then homework for today, for this week. Again, this is short PowerPoint because I want you to spend time doing this. What I have is a homework folder on Blackboard. I have several cases. First, in the folder, there are several reference PDFs on different types of evidence, voice recognition and discrimination, and textual analysis, and those kind of things. So that first, you're going to see a variety of sources to use as support, but then you can definitely find your additional support through Google Scholar or the databases. Likely Google Scholar. The WKU website doesn't have, or databases don't have a lot of linguistic sources on them. But if you do find something that you can't get because it's not available through Google Scholar, but you really would like the source, then Interlibrary Loan It. If it's a PDF of a journal article, they'll get it to you like usually within 24 hours. So I want you to then go to the case studies, and I want you to pick out a case. So there, I don't remember exactly how many cases I have in that folder. There's a good number to choose from. Choose one of them, and then there's a handout about your role. So you're going to take either the prosecutor side or the defense side, and you're going to evaluate the evidence that the linguist provides as an expert witness. You're going to look at the case. You're going to write up your evaluation of that evidence from either the prosecutor side or the defense side. So that there is a discussion board post if you have any questions, but I think this will be a nice, fun assignment to do. Low stakes, only 40 points, so have fun with it. And remember, just read around, because you can guarantee that there'll be something about language and the law, and then also forensic linguistics on the exam. So, and then maybe it'll give you some good ideas for papers as well. All right, that's it for week 12. And again, I'll be online for group meetings during our regular class time. And then if you want an individual meeting, just let me know.